Hi everyone and welcome to this video. In this video we're going to go ahead and deploy our API to Heroku so that we can be able to share it with other people via the internet. So right now we see that our API is done, so we've been able to build our simple REST API. Now the next thing we're going to do is to deploy it to Heroku. So Heroku is a platform which can help us to deploy our application without having to configure servers. And in this video, we're going to see how we're going to set up everything and then finally deploy our application. So the first thing we're going to do is to have a Heroku account. So you're going to create one by signing up. Then after that, you'll create an app. So I'm going to log in into my account. And then when I log in, I'm going to press login. And this is going to direct me to the dashboard. So on the dashboard is where I'm going to basically set up our application for deployment. So I'll come right here, just like you can see I have some apps here. So I'll create a new app. And then when I create a new app, I'm going to go ahead and provide the name of this app. So I'll provide a name that has to be unique. So I'll say pizza delivery. Then I'm going to call this API. So when I write API, it's already taken. So let me actually say Django. So this is available, and I'll go ahead and create this app. Now the first thing I'm going to do is to go to our settings, and then within our settings I'm going to go to our reveal config vars. So right now we don't have any config vars created for our application, but we can be able to add them. So since we're using Python decouple, we're going to be able to write our environment variables as our config vars. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go ahead to our .env and copy the secret key as well as the debug value. So I'll come right here. So our secret key will be a key, so I'll paste it right in here, and then I'll also go and provide the value. So I'll copy this. So I'll copy the secret key and then copy the value. So I'll add this as our config variable. So I'll do the same thing for debug. Now, since we are in production, we need to have our debug equal to false for security purposes. So what I'll do is to say debug is going to be equal to false. And since we have it being passed to our boolean every time we read it, then it's okay. So I'll go ahead and add it. Now after adding this, I'm also going to attach a Heroku Postgres database that we're going to use in our production. So in production, you're not going to use SQLite. What you're going to do is to use Postgres, so that to be able to run our API with Postgres. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go to the resources section. And then within the resources section, what I'm going to do is to search for an add-on. So Heroku provides us with add-ons, for example, databases and other tools that may be useful while running your application. So you need to head over here and look for Heroku Postgres. So I'll look for Heroku Postgres, and then once I make a request for Heroku Postgres, then I'll submit an order form. And then when I submit this order form, we already have our database attached. So when you go to our settings, we now have our reveal config vars, actually our config vars having our database URL as a key and then a value. So right now we have our config variable for our database URL setup. Now we need a way to tell our API to use SQLite in development as well as PostgreSQL in production. So what we're going to do is to set this up using DJ database URL. So DJ database URL is a simple tool that allows us to basically make use of database URLs. So instead of using our databases dictionary, in this case we're going to set up a database URL for our Postgres database in production. So all I'll do is to go ahead and install it. So I'll copy the command. I'll go ahead and copy this command. Then I'll pull up my terminal and create a new terminal. I'm going to create a new terminal. And once I have this terminal, then what I'm going to do is to go ahead and basically install this. So I'm actually in another virtual environment. So what I'll do is to actually stop my server right here. When I stop my server, then what I'm going to do is to basically go ahead and what I'm going to do is to install the DJ database URL. So I'll come right here and fix this. So this is going to be pip install. So this is going to go ahead and collect DJ database URL and add it to our virtual environment. Now since that is done, then I'll head over to our settings.py. So I'll look for our database configuration. So what we have is our databases dictionary that's basically specifying the engine that we're going to use, and in this case it's SQLite. We're also specifying the name of our database, which is going to be db.sqlite3. Now the first thing we're going to do is to write an if statement that's going to check if we have our debug equal to true, meaning that we are in development, and if we have our debug equal to false, then we're going to be able to also set up our database in the way we want. We're going to head over to the documentation of DJ database URI. So at the top of our code, I'm going to import it. So I'll come and say import. So this is going to be DJ database URL. And after doing it, then we're going to specify how we're going to connect to our database. So I'll come and copy this. And I'm going to go to our databases section. So I'm going to actually paste it for now. And I'm going to fix this in a moment, as well as I'll come and paste this. So right after doing this, then what we have is database connection settings for our Postgres, as well as our database dictionary. So what we're going to do is to create this as an empty dictionary and then set it up so that we can be able to make use of it both in production and in development. So I'll come right here. Since we have our debug variable equal to true in our development and equal to false in our production, so what I'll do is to come and specify that if we have our debug, that's if our debug is equal to true, then what we're going to actually have is our databases dictionary. So we're going to have the values of our database dictionary. So here we're going to have the default as the engine, as well as our name. So in this case, the database name. And then if we don't have our debug, then we're going to make use of these settings. So I'll say else, then what I'm going to do is to basically add these configurations right here. So these are going to be this side. And right after I have this, then since we have our database URL environment variable, I'm going to come and copy it. And since we're using the couple, I'm going to go ahead and basically just add this. So our Postgres URL is going to be config, and then I'll go ahead and specify it's going to be our database URL. So right after doing this, then we have actually made settings for our database. Now we're going to look into how we are going to set up our application and the different things we're going to do that are specific to Heroku configurations. So I'll go to my files, and the first file I'm going to create is going to be our proc file. So the proc file is going to describe how our server is going to run in production. So in this case, we're going to make use of a tool called Gunicorn. So Gunicorn is a server that's going to help us to run our application in production. So what I'm going to do is to go ahead and install Gunicorn. So I'll come to the terminal and say pip install Gunicorn. And this is going to go ahead and install Gunicorn within our virtual environment. So after installing Gunicorn, then we're going to create our proc file. So I'm going to go ahead and create a proc file. So this is going to be our proc file. And within our proc file, then what I'm going to specify are the different commands that are going to run our application in production. So the first command I'm going to write is going to be the web command. So it's going to basically specify how our server is going to run. So I'll write web and then the command for Gunicorn. So I'm going to write Gunicorn and then where our WSGI or where our application server is going to run. So in this case, what we have is our project. So within our project, we have the WSGI file that's basically specifying how our server is going to run. So I'll come right here, and what I'll say is pizza.wsgi and then log file. And right after doing that, then what we have is the command that's going to run our web server. Now the next thing we also need is to specify how we're going to carry out our database migrations. So I'll come right before our server command and then specify that every time we're going to make a release of our app, we carry out database migrations if they exist. So we need to add a command which is going to be release. And then in this case, what I'll do is to specify the command that we're going to run. So in this case, I'm going to specify python 3, then manage.py. This is going to be manage.py, and then we're going to actually migrate our changes. Now after doing this, I'm going to save, and once I save this, then the next thing I'm going to do is to specify our requirements for our application. So just like you see right now, we've installed most of the dependencies of our project. Now what I'm going to do is to go ahead and basically add them to our virtual environment. So I'll do that by using pip and then freeze. So I'm going to keep record of those in our requirements.txt file. So I'm going to say pip freeze requirements.txt. This is actually going to be requirements.txt. So this is going to both create a file as well as write our requirements there. So right after this is done, then what I'm going to do is also create our runtime.txt file. So the runtime.txt file is a file that's going to help us to specify which version of Python that we are using for our project. So when I come right here, I can say Python 3, and we are currently using Python 3.8.1.0. So what I'll do is to basically add our runtime.txt right here. So I'll create this new file, then create and call it the runtime.txt. Now within our runtime.txt, I'll just add our Python version. So it's going to have Python 3.8.1. Actually, this is going to be, let's see. So this is going to actually be 1.0. So when I do that, then I'm going to actually Control L. And right after doing that, then the next thing is going to actually be installing our database driver for Postgres. So before you actually push your code to your GitHub, you'll need to install the database driver, otherwise our Postgres database is not going to work. So I install a binary by saying pip install, and then I'll go ahead and write this name that I can't pronounce well. Then I'll specify that we are installing the binary. So I'm going to install it. And after installing it, I'll also add it to our requirements.txt file. So then I'll go ahead and also freeze it within our requirements.txt file. And now after doing that, then I'm also going to go ahead and set up a tool called white noise. So white noise is a tool that's going to help us to serve our static files in production. Now the problem is every time we to run our application in production, our Django web server is not going to be in position to run and be able to serve our static files. Now using white noise helps us to serve our static files. For example, our Swagger UI like this, it contains CSS and JS files. So if we need to serve those files, then we're going to rely so much on white noise. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and install white noise. So I'll copy this command and install white noise. After installing white noise, I'll also go ahead and add it to our requirements.txt file. Then after, I'll also add it to our middleware. So I'm going to copy this. So we expect that we have our Django middleware.security middleware. So I'll go over to our settings. And within our settings right here, so I'm going to minimize this for now. So when I go to our settings and within our middleware, so we already have our security middleware right here. So I'll just add the white noise middleware. Actually, go ahead and copy this and then add it to our middleware. So I'm going to fix this. And right after fixing it, I'm going to save. Now the next thing we need to do is to specify our static file storage. So right here we have right here we see that we want forever cacheable files and compression support. Then you can be able to specify this. So what I'm going to do is to copy this setting and add it to our static file storage. So it's going to be at the bottom of our files. And then I'm going to save. And then we can also go ahead and set up our static root. So I'm going to come right here and specify our static root. So the static root is basically going to be where we find our files in production, our static files, where our server is basically going to find our static files and serve them in production. So we need to say our static root is going to be equal to, so in this case we're going to have our base directory, sorry for this. And then we're also going to have our file. So we're going to create a folder called a static files directory that's going to basically hold all our static files. So you need to call this static files. And right after doing this, I'm going to go ahead and save. Now after saving this, then the next thing I'm going to do is to collect our static files. So I'm going to come right here and then say Python 3 manic.py, and then I'm going to go ahead and say that what we need is to basically collect our static files. So when I run this static file collect static command, it's going to go ahead and, so right now we have database, so I'm going to actually fix this. So this is actually supposed to be databases. So I'm going to save this and run our command again. This is going to go ahead and get all our static files and add them to our static root. So when I check in our files, we see a folder called the static files folder that has been created for us. So this static folder is going to have all our static files for the admin, for DRF, YASC, and for the REST framework. So right after we've done that, the next thing we're going to do is create a Git repo. So a Git repository is going to help us to monitor changes that we shall be able to use within our application. And we're going to also use GitHub with Heroku to be able to have automatic deploys. So this is helpful as it enables us to fix any changes with just a push of code to our main branch. So I'll go ahead and create our Git repository. But before that, I'm going to go ahead and create a git ignore file that's going to enable us to basically filter out stuff that we may not need to push to our GitHub. So you need to create this file by creating a new file. So I'll call this file git ignore. And after doing this, then I'm going to head over to GitHub. So I'll go to github.com. Actually, I'll search for GitHub and git ignore. So we're going to search for the GitHub git ignore for Python. So that will get most of the files for Python. So I'm going to come right here and I'm going to look for Python. So I'm going to look for the python.git ignore. Now I'm going to do is to basically go ahead and copy this. And right after copying it, then I'll come and basically paste this in our git ignore. Actually, just come and copy it manually right here. And after copying it, I'm going to go ahead and paste all of this. So these are basically all the files that you may want to ignore when working on a Python project. So I'll go ahead and save. After saving, then the next thing is going to be to actually create our Git repository. So I'll say git init. So this is going to be git init. Sorry for that. So this has created a Git repository. So right now you even see the folders .env and our db.sqlite3 database. We also have our PyCatch folders ignored, so we are not going to be able to commit them. So I'm going to add everything. So I'll say git add all. Actually, this is going to be git add all. So just I haven't actually created this because another Git repository seems to be, so I'm actually going to first remove the repository. So what I'll do is to remove our repository. Seems like my terminal is crashing, so let me see. So it seems like we have messed up. So actually what I'll do is first remove the repository. And after removing our repository, I'm going to go ahead and create our repository again. Then add everything. So I'm going to go ahead and add everything. And then I'm going to commit. So I'm going to say git commit m, and then I'm going to say this is going to be an initial commit. So if I to look into our settings, so I'm going to get over to our settings.py. We have been able to carry out most of our settings. So the next thing I'm going to cater for is going to be our allowed host. So our allowed host is going to be a list of URLs from which we're going to access our application. So in this case, I'm going to just come right here, and what I'll do is to just add star. So basically meaning most of the URLs. So after doing this, then I'm going to go ahead and also run our application. So we're going to try to run our application in development with Gunicorn. We're going to run Gunicorn, and then what I'll do is to run our project. So I'll say pizza then .wski. So this will run our application, meaning that everything is fine for now. So let's go ahead and actually deploy our code on GitHub. So I'm going to stop our server with Ctrl and C. And right after doing that, I'm going to head over to GitHub. So I'm going to head over to repositories. So I'll go and create a new repository. Actually, I'll go to creating a new repository. And after creating this new repository, I'm going to choose a name. So I'm going to call this pizza delivery. So actually, let me just call it pizza delivery. So this name is available. So I'll add the description, not add one, and go ahead and create the repository. So after creating this repository, I'll come right here and I'll copy that remote URL. So I'll add this remote URL to our repository. So right now I have a virtual environment, but I'm going to deactivate it. And then I'll go ahead and add a remote URL. So I'll say git remote, then add origin, then add a remote URL. I'm also going to rename our master branch to main. So I'll say git. Sorry for this. So I'll say git branch, and then what I'll specify is that our main branch is going to be main. Then I'll go ahead and push our code to GitHub. So I'll say git push, and then basically state that our upstream is going to be the main branch. So our remote URL, we want to push our code to the main branch. So this is going to go ahead and push our code to GitHub, and now we have our code on GitHub. So the next thing we're going to do is to be able to connect our GitHub to our Heroku, so that we'll be able to run our app. So now, hoping that everything is fine, when you go to our pizza delivery API, now I have my GitHub account connected to my Heroku account, so I can be able to basically connect them and then be able to deploy. So I'll come to the deploy section, and then when you click on connect to GitHub, you'll be prompted which GitHub to connect to. Now since I have mine already connected to this, then I'll have access to all the repos. So what I'll do is to search for that specific repo. So I'll say pizza, and then this is going to return the list of apps I've built. So I'll come here. So this is going to be our pizza delivery. So I'll connect our repository. So right after connecting our repository, we're going to enable automatic deploys, and then after that, we're going to go ahead and deploy the main branch, because that's where our code is for now. So this is going to go ahead and build our project. So right now we see that we are running the static file command and it's compressing, so let's be a little bit patient. So right now we see that our application has been deployed on this URL. So I'm going to try to access it, so I'll come right here and open our app. So right now we see that we are having an error. So what I'll do is to actually get the logs of this error. So I'll copy our error. So I'll come right here and copy the logs. So I'm going to specify that our app is going to be our pizza delivery API, and then be able to check out this error. So right now we are not logged in, so I'll go ahead and log in with Heroku login. So this is happening because I have the Heroku CLI installed, so you need to also install it. So I'll tap any key. So this is going to open up in the browser. I'm going to authenticate. And then now I'm logged in, so the next thing I'm going to do is to be able to just come and be able to carry out our log so that we see what is happening on the server side. So we see that our database migrations have actually happened, so our tables have been created in our database, which is fine. However, we have an error, so let's see what it is. So it seems like we made a mistake in our proc file. So let's actually see what happened. So I'm going to go to our proc file right here and hoping that I've written the command well. Then I'll go ahead and fix this. So it's going to be our log file. Actually wrote it wrongly. So I'll do is to save and then commit again. So I'm going to stop our logs and then git add all and then I'll git commit. So I'll git commit and then say fix Gunicorn error. So I'll go ahead and push. So we just git push. So this will push on our main branch. And since we pushed on our main branch, then right here we're going to be able to see the changes. Alright, so I'll head over to our Heroku. Now since we've enabled automatic deploys, we are going to be able to see that our changes are going to take effect. So I'll go to the overview section and now we see that our app is building again. Hoping that everything is fine, our application has now deployed. So let's go and check it out. So I'm going to go to our URL. When I refresh, we now see not found, meaning that our API is now working. So I'll head over to the docs section. And now this is going to bring our Swagger UI. Now everything is working. So the next thing we may need to do is actually set up our admin user on our admin dashboard. So to create our super user, what we're going to do is to run our bash on our application. So what I'm going to do is to run Heroku, bash, and then our app. So I'm going to specify the app as our pizza delivery API Django, which is the name of our app on Heroku. So basically what we have here is that we're going to be able to create a super user on our production API. So I'll come and run this command. And right now we see that we actually wrote the command badly. We're supposed to specify the app, which is our pizza delivery API Django. So this is going to go ahead and run our bash terminal on our production server. So right now we are in our terminal. So while we are on our terminal, we're going to go ahead and run the python manage.py create super user command. So I'll come and run it with python 3 and then manage.py and then create super user. So when I run this, we're going to be asked for the email. So I'll write our email, for example, admin@app.com. Then I provide our username, so I'll provide the username as admin and then provide the phone number. So I'll provide my phone number, which is so after providing a phone number, I'll also provide a password. And once everything is fine, our super user has been created successfully. So right now we've been able to create our super user. So when I stop this, I'm actually going to go ahead and close this for now. And after closing this, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and check out our admin panel. So I'll go to our Heroku app in production. So we actually opened up our app. And I'll navigate to the docs section. So I'll go to the admin section. So in this case, we're going to go to our API, then /admin. And now this is going to take us to our website admin. So right here, I'll put in our credentials, admin@app.com. and then our password, and this is going to log us into our website. So after creating our Django admin dashboard, then we're going to go ahead and test our API. So I'll come right here. What I'll do is to basically go to our project. So I'll actually come and open our app, and when I go to our slash docs, I'm going to try to test out the different endpoints. So we're going to see. So right now I'm going to come and try to create a user. So I'll try to sign up a user, try it out. So I'll provide our username as, let's say, so right now we actually have a user created, so I'm going to create another user who is not a super user. So in this case I'm going to provide a name and then another email. So this is going to be at gmail.com. so I'll provide a phone number, and then I'll provide a password as well. So our password is going to be password 123. So when I try to execute, this is going to go ahead and create our user. So let's try to actually see if they can log in. So right now if we go to our login, so this is basically on the create endpoint, so it's going to create our JWT. So I'll come and log in with the user I've created. So I'll say sure, and then at gmail.com, and then when I provide our password, I'll go ahead and execute, and then this is going to create our access token and our refresh token. So I'll copy our access token and then go to our authorize button. So I'll provide bearer and then our token. So when I authorize, right now let's try to access a protected endpoint. So I'll go to the slash to creating an order. So let's say we try creating an order. So when I create an order, let's say we create one order for large, and then let's say we want 3 large pizzas. So when I execute this, we now see that our order has been created. So right now we've seen how we can be able to deploy our API and how we can be able to use it in production. So there are instances in which you shall be faced in which our API will take long times to load. So by searching on the internet, I come across a tool called Caffeine, which helps us to basically help our app to stay awake. And this helps us to have our free app running on Heroku, but then be responsive. So what we're going to do is to make sure that we add our app to Caffeine so that it can be able to ping our Heroku app every 30 minutes so that it does not sleep. So I'll do is to copy our name. So I'll copy the pizza delivery API Django name, and then go to Caffeine and I'll add the name, and right now I'll give the app a Caffeine short. So this is going to make our app be able to be responsive. So right now what I'll do is to close this, and right now we have most of the functionality that we need. Thank you for watching, guys, and if you liked this series of videos, please leave a like and please subscribe if you're new to this channel. Thank you for watching, guys, and see you in the next series.